Let's talk Tetris. Tetris stars Taron Egerton as a real person. He plays Hank Rogers, who works for a software company who wants to get the rights to Tetris. And the company that this British company that he's getting the rights from, he wants to get the handheld rights to Tetris. Okay. They parse out these rights very carefully. So this British company he's working with, played by some very good actors who end up being the villains, though you don't know it at the time. Toby Jones being among them. He plays Robert Stein. These are all based on real people. Tetris is a true story, unlike Paint. So Hank Rogers goes to the UK to get the handheld rights to resell them to Nintendo, and they're going to launch the Nintendo Game Boy with Tetris preloaded. It comes with a Tetris cartridge, right? So every time you buy a Game Boy, you get Tetris. This turns into a crime drama devolving into just to comedic levels that's just insane. Hank Rogers actually is he's Dutch, but lives in Japan with his wife and children, and he flies to Russia to get the rights from the Russians. And he actually meets Alexei Pajitnov, who is the coder who created Tetris. And it's interesting because they go through, it's really cool storytelling. They have this like level 1, and they have these video game graphics, and it kind of walks you through the story as kind of a video game. And it uses kind of these like old school 8-bit graphics, which is kind of neat, and video game sounds. And it just helps immerse you in that. And interestingly, I didn't know a lot about this stuff. The original version of Tetris was formed with the brackets that are on every keyboard. He made Tetris using brackets on the keyboard, and he programmed it in BASIC. Alexei Pajitnov did. So Hank Rogers ends up having a relationship with Alexei. He's dealing with sort of the communists there in Russia. Alexei doesn't get any money from it because it all goes to the people, right? So the money actually goes to the state, doesn't go to Alexei. And it turns into this bizarre comedic, because Hank doesn't realize like what he's gotten into. He meets a woman named Sasha, who's his translator, who, you don't know. There are a lot of reversals. There are people watching him. There are people listening at every turn, every phone call. What is Hank doing there? He just earnestly wants to give money to the people who own the rights to Tetris, which is Alexei programmed it. But it's very interesting. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where the people from the Communist Party come to visit Alexei, and they're angry at him because his video game has become so popular, it's reduced the office productivity of everyone in Russia. And they're pissed. They're pissed about it. I don't want to go too much into the story because, it would ruin the enjoyment of the movie. Just say there are tons of reversals, twists and turns, real danger for Hank Rogers, with the communists coming after him and the Communist Party, basically flexing their muscle, and there are real stakes involved. Alexei's family is threatened, beaten. It's kind of shocking to see. And this is right before, the fall of Russia, the sort of the breaking up of Russia, the former USSR with Gorbachev. And Gorbachev is actually a character in this. Gorbachev plays into the history of Tetris. It is literally plays out like a Corleone family crime comedy with ridiculous extremes. So I cannot recommend this movie enough. It's on Apple TV Plus, which, if you know what I did, I actually just subscribed to it for $6.99. I'll unsubscribe. I'm going to watch Ted Lasso, and then I'm probably going to unsubscribe in a month. But for $6.99, that's what you would pay to rent the movie anyways. So whatever. I don't know why this movie wasn't given a theatrical release. A lot of these streaming movies now, I don't know why they're just not just releasing in theaters. I see a lot of movies in theaters that I think that should have been a streaming movie. Then I'll see movies on streaming, and why isn't this in the theater? But in any case, strongly recommend Tetris. Super fun comedy. The real history will surprise you. And the way that the story is told is very fun, very original, and I highly recommend it. So there you go. Alan, what did you think of Tetris?
I didn't see it. I was watching Full River Red.
You were watching Full River Red for like 3 days.
3.5. Oh, believe me, it pretty much was. But it reminds me of another documentary, Red Penguins. I think you've seen that one. That's
yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, the bringing American hockey, basically, or American hockey franchise to Russia, and the intrigue. I mean, people get murdered, and this is a documentary.
It's crazy.
It just sounds like that. I am interested in seeing this one, but I think we talked about it. Yeah, I think we talked about it before, but it seems like these stories mostly exist for posterity's sake. Just it's a weird story, no one knows about it, so let's make a movie about it and kind of capture this insane story for history. And I think the pinball movie, I don't know if we're going to talk about that one, but that felt the same way.
I don't think we'll have time to get to pinball this week, but
yeah. Well, definitely not this week, but later on. But the idea of there's these weird stories out there in the zeitgeist that no one knows about, and it's movies like this that just brings it up and captures it for all time, especially when you can't get documentary footage of what actually happened.
Great. Well, let's go to your chat comments and questions here, but I strongly recommend Tetris. Wish I'd seen it in a theater. Super fun film, and you'll be caught up on history of that game and acquiring its rights. I would recommend another book. I read this book back in the 90s, and there have since been updates to this book. It's called Game Over, and Game Over is about the history of all of the different video game companies. What I learned, and it reads like a crime. It's basically like a mafia. It's like the history of the mafia. And I'm reading about in this book, Game Over, like Nintendo started as a playing card company in the late 1800s. It's nuts. Then it goes to the history of Sega and Sony PlayStation and basically tells the history of all of these video game platforms and the battles between these companies. At the time I'd read it, I mean, it was, we weren't even in the next generation systems, but I love that book because the way it was written was with all this drama between the families that own these companies and how they just battled it out. So I would supplement Tetris with the book Game Over, which I think is a fantastic read about the history of video games and video game platforms.